this video, I'll speak about trenches. You have two types of trenches, mainly. You have the top one, which is a combat trench, and the bottom one, which is an axis trench. The combat trench is for surprise combat. It has digouts that let your infantry take a step up and then be able to fire out of the trench without exposing their entire body. As you can see, only the upper part of their body is exposed. So a machine gun firing on your infantry will not be able to hit them as accurately. They might dodge more shells. The axis trench, however, does not allow your infantry to fire out of it. However, it does not expose them at all either. So your infantry can move up to a combat trench without being exposed to enemy fire at all. Now I'll tell you how to make axis trenches and combat trenches, and these 4 different kinds of combat trenches. As you can see, these 4 have a different number of digouts for infantry to fire from, but they're all about the same length. You can decrease the number of digouts by simply using the scroll wheel. So select dig a trench command, right click on the ground, drag the length you want, then you scroll down to make an axis trench, or you can scroll back up and then scroll once more, and you have a few less digouts. Scroll a couple of times more, and you have even less digouts. More, and you get even less digouts. And you can scroll all the way up to only having 2 digouts, one on either side. While you can see the axis trench, if I scroll all the way back down again, have no digouts on either side. The reason you might want to have less digouts is because your infantry, during combat, will move freely between all the digouts as they see fit. So if you want to micromanage your units and have them sit in only 2 digouts, you make a trench with only 2 digouts, so they cannot move from those 2 digouts. Now I'll show you how to make curved trenches. You can either curve them outwards or inwards. You can do this by clicking the dig a trench icon, right clicking on the ground, dragging your mouse, and then holding the Alt key, and then scrolling up or down, which will then result in curved trenches. The reason you might want to do this is because an outwardly curved trench will give your infantry a wider field of fire, as they will be looking in more different directions instead of every one straight ahead. An inwardly curved trench will give your infantry a more concentrated field of fire, as they will all be looking towards the same point. Now I'll show you 2 more tips for trenches. Trenches are always dug with the digouts forward, which means that if you're facing the enemy spawn, they will be facing the enemy spawn. If you're facing your own spawn, your digouts will face your own spawn as well. Now, my second tip is that when you see the enemy infantry rushing toward your trench, they will usually throw grenades at your infantry to clear them out. So be aware that grenades, in my experience, tend to stick. You can't see it when I throw it on an empty trench, but when I throw grenades and there's an enemy infantry in the digout, and I select him as the target, the grenade sticks to him and falls directly down on his feet. You can counter this by simply, when you see the enemy throwing the grenade, moving your man 1 digout up or down, left or right, and the grenade will stay in the digout. And since explosions are simulated in the game properly, the explosion from this digout will not affect this digout. So your man in this digout will be safe. However, if a grenade lands in the middle of the trench, and your man is close to in the middle of the trench and not in a digout, he's in danger. I'm so sorry about this last minute edit, but I forgot to add some things to the main video. Trenches can be built by several units. Engineers, which you call off from off the battlefield with the dig a trench order when you have no unit selected. They can be built by singular entity units, and they can also be built by squad units. However, squad units make only a standard trench. They cannot make custom trenches. You have to hit dig. They will dig foxholes, and then you have to hit dig again, and they'll deepen their foxholes, or shell scrapes, as my friend likes to call them, and connect them together, and they become a trench. They cannot make custom trenches, such as engineers, or single entity units, such as SMG infantry and riflemen. You can connect trenches by right-clicking on an existing trench and dragging your mouse over to another trench. So you can, for example, connect these together, and you can make a trench without any dig outs. Move over to this trench. Now, if your engineers for some reason has been killed or retreated before completing the trench, you simply hover over it and right-click to summon new engineers if you have any left, and they will spawn in and start digging your trench.